Now, I don't normally review used electric cars, but I'm making an exception in this case because this Nissan Sakura is absolutely adorable, and also we're all feeling the credit crunch right now, so a used electric car might be worth checking out. Now, you can pick up one of these for 27 grand here at this particular EV dealership, and for that you can get up to 180 k's per charge on this little city car, but it is utterly adorable. Let's take it for a drive. Now, you might be wondering why Japan makes so many tiny microbial cars like this, and the answer is this is a kei class car, KEI. And kei class cars are cars in Japan which are made to meet certain size limitations and motor output limitations. And the benefit of kei class cars, because they're so tiny, is that you can get insurance breaks in Japan and you can get tax breaks in Japan, but also in some areas of Japan, you don't need to prove you have a parking space to buy a car if you have a kei class car. They are little liberators on 4 wheels. This particular car, this Nissan Sakura, has a 20 kilowatt hour battery pack, which is tiny, but it doesn't slow it down too much. And that's because it also has a 47 kilowatt motor, which again is tiny, but it has 195 Newton meters of torque driving its front wheels, which means that if I were to put my foot down, those little front wheels, because they're tiny, at low speed, they spin easily. It's surprisingly peppy in the city, this car. It really is fun. This smile on my face, I promise you, is 100% legit. I love this little thing. As for the 0 to 100 time, well, it's kind of irrelevant. Yeah, sure, it'll do 100 k's an hour. Actually, it'll max out at 130 k's an hour. But in the city, which is where this car's designed to live, you're not really going to be pushing speed limits too hard. Honestly, I've only been driving this thing for 15 minutes, and already I can see why this is the Japanese Car of the Year for 2022. It's just got everything you need in a car, and it's so pint-sized, so easy to park. I love it. It's just fun to drive too. Everything about it is affordable. The car's affordable, the tires are affordable. You want to buy replacement tires on this thing? Look how tiny they are. You can go online and find absolutely cheap ones. This is brilliant, it costs nothing to run as well. All right, but now let us talk about room. And this car, despite its tiny, tiny dimensions, has a lot of room. Look how much room there is above my head. Like, I'm 5'10", and I don't think I've been in a car with this much headroom above me before, except maybe in a van. It's insane. There's also a relatively large amount of leg room. You will have to extend your seat back. Oh, good Lord, far out. I can barely touch the pedals now, which is not a smart thing to do while I'm driving. Let's put that back. Crikey. As for the backseat passengers though, well, look how much room there is back there. There is heaps of legroom. If you put that seat all the way back, look how spacious it is. Also, not only that, look at the headroom in the back as well. I mean, that is comically good. Oh, see what I mean? Just put your foot down, the wheels spin. This thing is hilarious. It's a wonderful little joyous machine on wheels. It's a TARDIS as well in terms of space. I mean, look at the back. You pop open the back, at first glance it may look, oh, look how tiny that boot is. It looks comical, but the entire back seat slides back and forward, and even I can squeeze in there with the seat set forward. This thing is space personified. I mean, it's a box, and a box is the best shape to maximize space. But now let's talk gadgets, and this car, well, it has quite a lot. Gosh, it's easy to drive. This is a visions. Brilliant. I can see every car all around me. Okay, so starting with this big central display here. Yes, it's a Japanese import car, which means much of the menu is in Japanese. This one looks like it's been converted to English, but there are still some things when you, for example, try to tune into a TV station, which you can do in this car, it tries to find Japanese stations. Also, I believe you would need quite a bit of hardware modification to pick up any TV stations in New Zealand on this thing. Despite that though, it's got air conditioning. It's got seated heats in both the driver and the passenger seat. It's got a heated steering wheel as well. It's got power steering. It's even got e-pedal. Yes, this Nissan function here, e-pedal, means by turning this on and putting the car into B mode, now I've got one pedal driving. That means I can drive in the city just using the accelerator in most situations. That means that when I'm slowing down, rather than just wasting that energy with braking, it's turning that back into electricity and putting power back into the battery, which can give you, see, look, an extra 15% or so more range. Look at this, I'm slowing down, I'm not touching the brake. It's stopping for me. Except when you get right to the start, then I have to press the brake. All right, and now, I love this thing. This is brilliant. It's also got cruise control. It's got adaptive cruise as well. It's got a charging timer built in. What more could you want? All in such an easy to park car. One thing I want to do now though is put this car into sport mode. It has a mode button down there, which means I have to take my eyes off the road for a split second. There we go. Sport and e-pedal. Okay, it's not a rocket ship, but once you get above 50 k's an hour, its 47 kilowatt motor does show its limitations. It's not a highway cruiser, it's a city car. But in the city, it is king. Forget your Maseratis, forget your BMWs, forget your big Audis. In the city, this is what you want to drive. Because this puts a smile on your face. I'm not worried about tight gaps. I'm not worried about turning circle, of which it has a brilliant turning circle. This just fuels the soul. Who would have thought such a microbial car would be this much fun to drive? But let's say you brought this thing home and you want to charge it. How do you charge this thing, you might be wondering? Well, you have options. Not all of them are brilliant, to be honest, but you can start with a regular household outlet. Yes, this battery in this car is small enough that you could fully charge this thing overnight using a regular household outlet. Whee! Oh, I love this thing. Okay, what about faster charging? Well, normally in most EV reviews, I'd recommend you splash out on a 7 kilowatt wall-mounted charger like this one I've got installed in my own garage. It's brilliant, charges most cars from flat to full overnight. But in this case, I wouldn't probably bother, because this car's limited to 3.3 kilowatts AC, the amount of power it can take into its battery charging. So you're kind of wasting your money by putting a 7 kilowatt charger in just for this car. The next question is, what if you want to go on a road trip? Does it rapid charge? And yes, of course it rapid charges, but there's a big but. It has a CHAdeMO socket. It's an older style socket on the side that's quite popular in Japan, but is not really seen on new cars anymore, except for perhaps the Nissan Leaf. They're still supplying cars with CHAdeMO sockets, and the Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid, that still has a CHAdeMO socket. Now, there is no shortage of CHAdeMO sockets in New Zealand, but they charge slower than the more common CCS socket. Your maximum charging rate in this car is going to be somewhere around 30, maybe 35 kilowatts DC, and that's very slow by today's standards. That means a charge from say 10% to 80% in this car is going to take about 45 minutes, and that's not epic. That being said, of course, you can still take this thing on a road trip if you want. I used to have a key class car back when I lived in Europe, and once I took it on a road trip, even though it's a city car, from Austria all the way across the Slovak Republic, charging 16 times on those Slovak highways in order to reach my border crossing in Ukraine, in which I stayed the night there, and then I turned around and came all the way back. That was a total of 16 rapid charges to get that journey. It was a long, arduous journey, but it proved you can do long road trips even in a little car. But now that I'm old and dead inside, I probably wouldn't do that again. But I'm glad to say I did it, and yes, you could do it in this car. And honestly, this is sort of refueling some of that early EV joy I used to have. Oh, I love it. I love this thing. It's just addictive. If you get the chance to drive one of these things, you've got to do it. What about dimensions, you might be asking? Well, I'll put the length and the width and the height all there on the screen so I don't have to memorize all those figures. But yeah, it is microbial. This is, I think, quite possibly the smallest electric car you can buy in New Zealand right now. It's also really, really light. Like, it's 1,080 kilograms. And for an electric car, in 2024, that is stupidly light. I don't think you can get any car that light anymore. Maybe if you're in the comments you can prove me wrong, but I think this might be the lightest car you can buy in New Zealand today, maybe? What that lightness translates into though is efficiency. The official efficiency figure for this car is 12.4 kilowatt hours per 100k. That's how much electricity, 12.4 units every 100k on average. Now that is very little. That means that if you're with the EcoSaver plan with Ecotricity, it's the same power plan I'm on, then a full charge in this is going to cost about $3.50. Like $3.50 for 100 k's travel. Where can you get that? You can't even get that on a bus using public transport. It costs 10 times that. Also, if you're with Ecotricity, then you'll be saving the planet too, because Ecotricity is New Zealand's only certified climate positive electricity provider. It's only from wind, hydro, solar. Why wouldn't you sign up at ecotricity.co.nz? What about driving feel though, you may ask? Well, it's got great acceleration for the city. Like I said, under 50 k's an hour, it's very zippy. However, it does handle like a small car. You know, it's light, it's nimble. For example, chuck it into this little street. Whee! Like, here comes this giant Mercedes thing the other way, and he's got to slow down. I don't, because I know this car zips straight on through. See? Whee! Easy, effortless. I feel kind of liberated driving this thing. You know how, like, when you're riding a bike, you're not worried about traffic and parking and all that sort of thing. I feel sort of like that to an extent, because I can fit into the tiniest spaces. This thing's so easy to park as well. Like, if I just do a U-turn here when the street is clear, I know I'm going to turn around to the space with room to spare. Look at that! My own car wouldn't do that. This is brilliant. But if we're being brutally honest, this car, oh, that's so nimble, is not perfect. Sure, it's not a very fast car. Once you get over 50 k's an hour, it will slow down. It's not ideal for long road trips either. Yeah, sure, you can do them, but its limitations in its battery and its limitations in its charging type and charging connector mean that road trips will take much longer in this car. This car is also not suitable for families of 5 because it only has 4 seatbelts in it. But let's do the spud score now, and performance-wise I'm giving it 5 spuds. It's quick in the city, but not on the highway. Handling's next, and once again I'm giving it an average score of 5 spuds. It is nimble in the city, but again only in the city. As for comfort, 6 spuds, as it has so much room and all the creature comforts. As for efficiency though, this thing gets 9 spuds because it runs on the mere smell of an Electron. Next is gadgetry, and I'm giving it 8 spuds there. It's got all the toys of much more expensive EVs, although some gadgets like the TV won't work without surgery. Value's next, and I'm giving it 8 spuds again. It's just so cheap for what you get. But both AC and DC charging let it down, so I can only give it 2 spuds there. As for style, it's super cute, but it's not sexy, so it gets 4 spuds. But is it fit for purpose? Well, absolutely. I give it 9 spuds. It's ideal for cities, and yet it's still got a 5-star safety rating. It's the closest thing you can get to riding a bike in the city, but in this you arrive warm, dry, comfortable, and in one piece. I absolutely love it. But the ultimate decider is PSC, and unfortunately the Sakura will let you down with an in-dash potato storage of only 22 tubers, which gives it a total spud score of 59. Whee! Bottom line is this car, it has that X factor, you know, that factor you can't quite put your finger on why you love it, but it's got it all. I mean, it's got every gadget you can imagine. It's fun in the city. Sure, it's not the quickest car out there, but if you're a fan of clean air in cities like I am, and if you also want to make an impact on climate change, then really, this car, whee, you can't overlook.